What's up, everybody? thebesttaco here, and for today, I've actually got a special little video for you guys at home where I wanted to go ahead and give my personal take on the 5 hunters that I think are best for winning your ranked and casual games. And to start us off, I've got this main man on the screen right here, on her. I've always personally loved on her. He is without a doubt my favorite hunter in the game, but the reason why he's my favorite hunter to play in ranked is because of his level 5 capabilities. His ultimate, Desert Fury, is probably one of the hardest hitting abilities at level 5, and that alone is typically enough to like make or break either invade opportunities at purple or red buff for the enemy team. You have some invade opportunities going on at that big new oracle that's been established in Smite Conquest Season 7 map. And I mean, the most important part of all is that it's just so much damage outright with CC immunity that it can make it really difficult for enemy junglers or enemy mid laners to try and rotate to your lane to look for any real gank opportunities at the start of a match, because oftentimes you guys know how it goes. Whenever you're in those ranked and casual games, you're just going to be trapped in that dual lane for probably around 11 to 13 minutes or so before you really start seeing some big rotations coming through for team fighting areas near like Gold Fury and things like that. But I just think that Anher's kit is probably one of the best for 1v1 boxing opportunities. Again, the Desert Fury having CC immunity attached to it, as well as the 8 spears dealing 60 damage plus 30% physical power at level 5 is, I don't want to say it's ridiculous because I really don't want Honor to get nerfed, but it's definitely an incredibly strong ability. And I also think that his shifting stance will always give him some strong boxing opportunities. The slows, plus increasing his damage buff by 8, 11, 14, 17, 20% at max ranks, can definitely be devastating for a lot of other hunters to deal with. Also, Impale working so well alongside of the Shifting Sands. Honor, just as a whole, is a really solid pick, and I don't think you can ever really go wrong in any conquest match. Like, it doesn't even matter what the enemy team composition is looking like or what your team composition is looking like. That's one of my favorite things about Honor, is that he's just such a strong god outright for early, mid, and late game team fights that I don't think you necessarily have to rely on what your team is doing or like drafting, or what the enemy team is doing or drafting in order to really find success with this god. So I'm not gonna say that this list, was like, orders ranking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of like the hunters. I'm just saying that these are the 5 hunters I have the most success with in my Smite Rank games. And as somebody that's, hit Grandmasters and Masters, I thought maybe some of you guys might be interested in that. Or in this, I should say. But yeah, on her, definitely top of the list for me. Really strong, big boy, hits pretty hard, and well, I mean, he's a lion. You can't really go wrong with that. Um, After on her though, another hunter that I think has really been rising in the ranks as of late, this guy right here, Shiva Lanka. As many of you may know, his ultimate no longer applies the stun on Darkest Night. A little bit unfortunate for those of you who loved getting that freebie stun in team fights, but I think as far as balance is concerned, that was one of the better nerfs that we've seen towards Shiva Lanka, and probably a necessary one. He had so much team fight capability because of that ultimate, and even without the stun being applied, this is still a great, not like gank opportunity ultimate to use, but the fact that you get assists off of applying this for your team, and the fact that it just is able to cut all comms in a team fight, especially when you look at your ranked and casual games, because oftentimes the people that you're playing against, and even the people that you're playing with, aren't going to be using that voice comms all too often. So that's a big part of the reason why I think we're starting to see a rise in the play count of Shiba Lanka, because it's just so hard to actually try and fight through that pitch black. You don't know where your abilities are going. You don't know how many people are surrounding you. You don't even know if it's a good engagement. And oftentimes, teams will find themselves looking to retreat anytime this ability comes through, which can also help greatly with trying to establish general map pressure around objectives. So think like Pyromancer, Gold Fury, even Tower and Phoenix Sieges can get a little bit easier with Shiba Lanka because of that extended basic attack range increase going to 40 feet, which, if you're not aware of how long that is, just picture it from here to here. And it's really safe to use when chasing someone, just because you have so much range on them. As long as you're accurate, you're probably going to be able to find a kill or two. Another reason why I wanted to add Shibalanke to the 5 hunters list is because Rising Jaguar. He's got some CC immunity on his dash, and it's a little bit different to Honor, obviously. He can't necessarily be as aggressive with his dash, but it pairs really nicely alongside of the poison darts. I also really value that poison dart slow, and the fact that it enhances your branching bola damage, because branching bola is going to be a lot easier to connect with whenever people are slowed. So all of Shiva Lanka's kit just kind of works really fluidly, and I think he's also got a really strong laning phase for casuals or rank conquest. Doesn't really matter what division you're in. It's really tough to try and do anything because of his level 1 lane clear. And the big purpose of Shiva Lanka as well, I don't know if some of you guys might know this already, some of you might not, but when you're playing Shiva Lanka in that laning phase, do everything in your power to keep this ability, his branching bola, at level 1 as long as possible. It uses so little mana, and you're able to clear so much better than whoever the enemy hunter might be, unless it's like an Izanami or something. But even Izanami can really struggle against Shiba Lanka because of the poison darts being so great at helping to reveal her and prevent her from looking for any aggressive invis dash towards you. So yeah, I just really value the one clear. It's just so difficult to try and deal with Shiba Lanka at levels 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, at 5, he just can have so much exterior map influence outside of the dual lane that it's just really difficult for the enemy team to really look for sort of initiation or gank opportunities against your team, which I think a lot of people could use the help for on your team, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. We all play the same Smite games together, especially on the weekend, so I know what you guys are in for. But yeah, if you're looking for a solid, safe pick, I think Shiba Lanka it should definitely be in the back of your mind always. After Shiba Lanka, I think it kind of goes without saying. Have to bring this bad boy up. I am not the greatest Heimdaller by any means. Heimdallier, however you want to say it. It's all whatever to me. But my point being, I think that this god is really sick. I personally still prefer Honor over Heimdallier, but I can definitely see argument cases either way. I think what makes Heimdallier so strong in comparison to other hunters is just the general damage of his autos. He hits harder than any other hunter out there, including on her, and it is next to impossible to try and box him in those early 1 through 4 levels unless you have a really good dual lane that's like dive heavy, think like Erlong Shen, Medusa, things that can kind of sit on top of Heimdallier from the start. It's going to be really tough to deal with this guy. And even if you do have a dive heavy comp, it's still really hard to get up close and personal with Heim just because of the second ability. Um, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this, but I love the fact that you have a little bit of a knockback and a slow opportunity. And the slow as well, it's really important to emphasize on the fact that at max rank, it actually hits a 25% slow. And 25% is a lot more than you would think. The fact that it's 15% to begin with is also pretty intense, and it lasts for 1.5 seconds. But again, I love Heimdallier just because of that self-peel opportunity from his second ability. If a jungler tries to come, gank you or something like that in the laning phase, then you just knock him up. And if you're playing your cards right, you should have your Bifrost in short distances from each other. And again, really want to emphasize on the fact I am not the greatest Heimdallier. If any of you have seen my Heimdallier gameplay videos on my YouTube, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's cool. Well, we live and we learn. I'll get it down packed eventually. But I feel like I just could not make this list of the 5 hunters I think are best right now in ranked in casuals without including Heimdall just because of his damage alone. It's just too intense. And I think that once you get a little bit of attack speed online, you'll really start to notice how heavy his impact can really be in team fights, because you don't even necessarily have to use his ultimate through the realms as a killing blow, so to say. There is a lot of setup potential that you can use through the realms for. I think ideally you're going to be looking to try and knock out either a support, a solo, or a jungler with this ability in teamfight situations. And I say those 3 roles specifically because those are the ones that are typically going to be protecting the enemy team's carries. So if they're spending 4 seconds traveling to Niflheim, you have all that time with your team to collapse. And 4 seconds makes a really big difference in the heat of the moment. I think anybody who plays enough Smite could agree with me on that one. So I think the hardest part about Heimdall, and the reason why I wouldn't gauge him or rate him over on her right now personally, I do find him to be a little bit more technical as far as the mechanics are concerned. But if you're able to, get him kind of down packed and really utilize that escape of his, the Bifrost, with those short distances, Heimdall could definitely be a hunter that I think surpasses on her even just because his damage alone is insane. Like I'm waiting for him to get nerfed. Um, I play ADC as you guys know a lot, so hopefully I learn him really well before he gets nerfed, so I can start playing him more often in my own ranked games. But as of right now, he's obviously a little bit on the back burner for me. He's definitely a really fun hunter to play though. And again, I just really love the setup potential and the fact that you can just remove so much peel and like survivability from the enemy team with this through the realm setup. Just a little bit of food for thought, I guess, for those of you that want something that's a little bit more aggressive. I think that Heimdall is someone who's meant to be played a little bit more passively in the laning phase, unless you have an aggressive support paired with you that can really protect. Think like Sylvanas, Amir, maybe even a Sobek, because Sobek new buff, kind of nutty. Um, but yeah, all in all, I just don't think as long as you feel comfortable with like the mechanical aspect, and even if you don't feel comfortable with the mechanical aspect, I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I just built attack speed and I destroyed everybody. It's just that's how hard he hits, to put it into perspective. So like I said, couldn't make this list and not include Heimdall. This god is honestly insane, and I don't know, I'm really excited that he's in the game, honestly. But after that, this one I think won't surprise any of you. Jingwei. The main reason why I have to include Jingwei for this top 5 list of the best hunters to play for casuals and rank conquest is because of the fact that she just has such insane survivability. Plus, we're currently in a pretty crit heavy meta for a lot of hunters, and I know that there are tools that enemy teams can use against you to try and I guess limit that or restrict that crit aspect. You're looking at thorns, you're looking at spectral armor, even Nemean can still have a little bit of an impact depending on what stage of the game you're in. But I think overall, Jingwei is just always going to be a super frustrating hunter for the enemy team to ever try and collapse on. Between airstrike and her persistent gust into the agility, it's just so hard to keep track of her. It's usually not worth the effort. You'll oftentimes be left alone, I think, in this god, and people try, or they tend to try and leave their hunter for a 1v1 situation against her. But my message to you would be to just play extremely passive. You're not really looking to box on Jingwei until you get your third item online. And as for that build pathway, I think it's pretty standard stuff. Devil Gloves, Ninja Tabi, Rager Executioner. The Rager Executioner being largely dependent on what the enemy team's composition is and what they're building. And I think that also, if you feel like I'll break it down even further. If you feel like you're struggling to deal damage, Executioner. If you feel like you want to try and snowball and get ahead, crit. You're looking for rage. Because of Jingwei's 2 explosive bolts, I know that the crit chance on the first is at 0, but it extends all the way up to 20% by the final rank, by the 5th rank. It starts at 5% in the 2nd rank, and then it goes 5, 10, 15, 20%. And again, with crit just being such a predominant item right now, or such a strong build pathway for hunters right now, Jingwei is almost always going to be at the top of the food chain in those kind of circumstances just because of how well crit synergizes with her kit naturally. So, again, the large reasons for Jingwei being included: crit, survivability. Two things that you almost always want in all of your ranked or casual games. Um, and last but not least, gotta include our best friend Hu Yi. And the reason why I have Hu Yi making the cut over some of these other hunter choices like Izanami, Medusa, Uller even, I like Hu Yi on her Heimdall Jingwei all more than Uller because of the fact that Uller, once you start getting to more technical level games, I guess this is more applicable to rank games though, like depending on what your rank skill level is. But for me and for a lot of other higher end players, the problem with Uller is that at a certain point in the game, he just becomes extremely punishable. And what I mean by that is if you're not consistently staying in axe stance, it gets really easy to pretty much CC chain him into his death. And even when he is consistently in axe stance, the fact that he lacks a CC immune ultimate and his escape being rather I don't think that he's a bad leap by any means, but it doesn't take you super far. I know that it's great for getting over walls and stuff like that, but I've always just personally felt like Ullr's one of those hunters where unless you're getting some insane snowball potential in the actual laning phase itself, you're usually just going to fall behind and suffer when that late game starts to draw in. And I also think that all of these other hunters that I've mentioned have great capability of just winning that 1v1 matchup against Ullr. And that's where I kind of want to draw things back to Hu Yi here and why I think Hu Yi is the final hunter I want to make for this list. His ultimate, for starters, lots of AoE potential, lots of zoning potential more specifically, and he can make it really difficult when the enemy team is looking for sieges, when they're looking for objective play, and even when they're looking for just general escapes in the jungle. He can be great at cutting off a counter flank or something like that from the enemy team, depending on how you decide to use the placement here. And it's usually going to stop the enemy team in their tracks. They're usually not going to want to chase you because of that slow being at 20% outright. Um, Not only that, but I think Hu Yi is also particularly strong in a crit meta because of his passive, Sun Touched. After taking a critical hit, Hu Yi can't be critically hit again for 3 seconds. So if you're in a boxing matchup with another ADC and you both have crit dominant builds, well, Hu Yi has, I think, a better chance of winning that exchange because even if he gets hit once for 7 and 900 damage, it's still not going to be as bad as the fact that you can hit the other guy twice as many times, if not 3 as many times, with those crits in comparison to yourself. That 3 seconds can buy you a lot of time and will oftentimes be the difference between life or death whenever you're playing Hu Yi and looking for the escape. I also really like the way that Dive Bomb works with the rest of his kit because the ability to be able to choose your landing spot after kind of surveying the general area around you is a really strong utility tool, especially when paired with this Mark of the Golden Crow. That little bit of knockup value can provide some initiation factors for your team. Not to mention the Mark of the Golden Crow extending the slows and everything like that. It's tough because that's 40%. Because I don't know how many people pay attention to the fine print, but a target with Mark of the Golden Crow will have their movement speed slowed by an additional 20%. And yes, that does stack with the initial slow of 20%. So a 40% slow on somebody. I'm thinking about those beefy tanks and solo laners that, you don't really want to deal with them. You just want to slow them down. Make it difficult for them to play around their team. And that's one of the big reasons why I think Hu Yi is awesome for casuals and ranked gameplay because he's just able to provide a lot of team fight where there might actually not be any originally because of, a lot of outside factors such as your team's usually not going to be in comms with you. Not many people use voice comms in Smite, unfortunately. I think it's also just the fact that target focus, depending on what level of play you're in, can get a little bit sketchy. And what I mean by that is what I've noticed the most in like even all the way up to diamond and like low diamond and under games, people will see who they want to go on and they will just commit to that one target. But that might not necessarily be who, your mid laner wants to go on or who your support wants to go on or the solo or the jungler. So if you ever feel like you're kind of stranded out there in no man's land, that's what I love about Hu Yi is that between the double slow of Mark and the Golden Crow and Sunbreaker, you're usually going to be able to attract the attention of your team and kind of center them a little bit better to kind of fight around you instead of just looking to play off their own agenda. So, again, Hu Yi largely making this list because of the fact that I just think he has some really strong team fighting potential, and he's also got a really good base hold in case you ever find yourself pretty far behind. Sunbreaker can be a really important tool for trying to prevent that initial wave dive from the enemy team and clearing those minions at the same time. Always going to add a lot of value, possibly even save your phoenixes. So, I hope this helps you guys. I've had a lot of you come into my stream asking me, Taco, what do you think about who's the best hunter in season 7? Who do you think is going to be the best hunter for like the rest of the season? Like, what are your favorite hunters to play? And so I kind of decided to give you guys best of both worlds. These are, like I said, the 5 hunters that I think you're going to find the most success with to win your ranked and casual games, as well as just 5 hunters that I feel like are safe in just about every situation. So hope this video finds you guys well. Hope you enjoy it. If you have anything else you'd like to hear from me or see from me, go ahead and feel free to drop me a question in the comments section, and I will do my best to either get a video out or answer it. So I love you all. Have a great rest of your night. Peace out, pals.